Hi, I'm Lorrie Grant, Managing Editor here at Transport Topics, and we're continuing to mark our launch of our new website, ttnews.com, with issues of the day. Joining me is Seth Clevenger, who covers all things technology. He's also Managing Editor of Features and oversees our supplemental publications, iTech, and Equipment and Maintenance Update, as well as our coveted rankings of for-hire carriers. So there's a lot to discuss today. Seth, I want to start with electronic logging devices. Can you please tell us where the trucking industry stands?
You bet. Well, this has obviously been a hot topic for a number of months, even years, and continues to be the case as we get closer to that December 18th deadline for compliance. So really just about half a year away now, and the preponderance of the industry will be on electronic logs. And this has is going to have a wide-ranging effect across the industry, not just for those who haven't adopted yet. Even if you're using e-logs today, you're going to see the ripple effects from the rule. There's some expectation that there's going to be a certain degree of loss of capacity, of freight hauling capacity as a result of the rule, as compliance with driver hours of service regulations becomes more strict. At least enforcement of those rules becomes more strict. And perhaps there's some speculation that a certain number of drivers might exit the industry. That remains to be seen. But if you are prepared for the rule, this could be a great opportunity for your company, for your fleet, to distance yourselves from the competition. So I'm sure many of you are watching the rule from that vantage point as well. For those of you who haven't installed some sort of electronic logging system yet, the deadline is pretty quickly approaching. You're running out of time. So certainly, if you are a fleet of any size, we'd encourage you to plan ahead and don't wait till the last minute. Because if you do wait till the last minute, you probably won't be the only ones, and there might be a mad dash at the finish line to get compliant at the end, and hopefully the industry can avoid that.
Well, Seth, let me ask you, is there any sort of grandfather clause for certain trucking companies for any issue?
So if you are currently using an electronic logging system that's out there today, these are, I don't want to get too wonky, but these are generally categorized as AOBRDs, automatic onboard recording devices. I suppose that is kind of wonky, but these are the systems that are out there today that you already have installed if you're using e-logs now. If you do have a system in place ahead of the December 18th deadline, you do have an additional 2 years to be compliant with the technical specifications in the ELD rule. So you won't have to have a device that meets every last detail in the ELD rule until December of 2019 if you have a grandfathered device. So that buys you more time if you're already on a system, and frankly the rule rewards early adopters who have been doing this in some cases for many years. Now, one point of interest on that is you can transfer your existing devices onto a replacement truck. So if you buy new trucks, you don't have to immediately get an ELD. You can transfer the devices that you have in use already to those trucks. But if you expand the size of your fleet, then you will have to implement some ELDs prior to that December of 2019 deadline.
Okay, so lots going on there. Another hot topic is autonomous vehicles. What is happening with the industry there? Another really tech-centric development.
And certainly a topic that keeps me very busy and keeps me always looking for the latest, because it seems to be moving very quickly. The latest is the emergence of some more players in this field. We've seen some of the Silicon Valley technology startups get into this, companies that have come out of stealth mode. We've also seen some of the well-known technology companies like Uber get into this, as well as Waymo, which is formerly the Google self-driving car project. They've confirmed that they're at least testing their technology, their self-driving vehicle technology, on a Class 8 truck. Remains to be seen how far they go with that, but we now have both Uber and Waymo, to some extent, working on self-driving trucks. So that's a new development, and of course the truck makers and industry suppliers have been working on this for a number of years. That hasn't stopped. The focus is a little bit different, though. For the OEMs, for the truck makers, The focus really right now is on what's known as ADAS. Again, one of these wonky words, but advanced driver assist systems. And even though it's wonky, I'm going to say it because you're going to be hearing more and more of it, I think, in the coming years from your truck manufacturers and some of the braking suppliers. And these are systems that are kind of built on the active safety systems of today, like collision mitigation, adaptive cruise control, that assist the driver and automate portions of the driving process, but assist rather than replace the driver. And that's where their focus is right now.
Well, you know, speaking of Uber, the company also has rolled out an app recently, the Uber Freight app. But tell me in general, is there a lot going on with apps for moving freight in general?
Sure. So Uber Freight launched pretty recently, and that's one example of a mobile app-based, essentially a mobile app-based freight broker. And Uber, of course, is a big company and gets a lot of attention when they enter an industry like trucking. But other companies have also been doing this. You have companies like Transfix, Convoy, Lane Honey that have also offered their own sort of app-based systems to streamline freight transactions, to connect shippers and carriers more directly and easily. And of course, you know, a lot of that is targeted more toward sort of the mid-size and smaller carriers that don't have as much technology. So a lot of the big carriers and certainly the big third-party logistics companies have been using technology for years, and that's really been, you know, part of what's at the core of their business. So it's really nothing new at the highest levels of the industry. The really big shippers, the really big 3PLs, big fleets have been using technology for a long time. But these types of apps might.
Well, does it let smaller players get in the game? Is that the point?
I think that's a big part of it. And a lot of the newer app-based freight brokers will say that, of course, they are more than happy to work with big companies as well. But to me, I think a large part of the addressable market, a large part of where technology can still really permeate and make a big difference is on the kind of the smaller scale, smaller carriers, which of course are the majority of the trucking industry.
I see. Well, tech company or not, everyone has an eye toward the 2017 Transport Topics 100 rankings of for-hire carriers. And I know it's coming out soon. We don't want you to give away too much.
Okay.
But what can we look forward to, as much as you can say, and still keep a lot of the surprise under wraps for us?
And you can look for it in the July 10th issue of TT. So I know Joe and Dan talked about this a little bit earlier today, so I won't go into too much detail, but I will say that we have a very close race now at the very top of the list between number 1 and 2, closer than it's been in past years with some of the merger and acquisition activity. Beyond that, we've also expanded the rankings a bit this year by including estimates for certain companies that have not been listed in the past, so I think we have the most comprehensive and frankly the most accurate list that we've ever had of the top 100 carriers. And it is a list for all of North America now, or at least the three largest markets in North America, because we are adding estimates for companies based in Mexico for the first time. None of the Mexican companies quite cracked the top 100, but 2 of them were very close. So that's something to watch in the years ahead. And I'm sure many of you will remember our top 50 logistics rankings earlier this year, where XPO Logistics became the new number 1 in that sector. And also later this year, we'll have our updates to our top 100 private carriers and our top 50 global freight carriers.
Well, all good stuff, lots to look forward to. And I just want to clarify that was Joe Howard, the executive editor of TT, and Dan Berth, our features editor. Let me ask you, just to wrap up, the second half. We've had a very interesting first half. The second half of the year, we'll have a lot more going on as well, but one of the big things seems to be lots of shows and exhibitions, being exhibited. Are you looking for anything in particular to wrap up the second half?
Yeah, it's certainly going to be busy. It's going to be keeping us at Transport Topics very busy. And one thing that we're definitely looking forward to is the inaugural North American Commercial Vehicle Show in Atlanta. The concept there is it's going to be a show that's held every other year, similar to the format of IAA in Hanover, Germany. And this will be the first time, so we're eager to see how it plays out, and it'll be fun to experience that for the first time. Beyond that, there's a whole list of other shows, and coming up more sooner on the calendar, we have the National Truck Driving Championships coming in August. Also in August, on the technology side, we have the PeopleNet TMW Joint User Conference, and that's, of course, two of the big trucking technology properties owned by Trimble. So that's something to watch out for in the world of transportation software and telematics. And September is when things really get busy. We have NACV, and also IANA will be holding its annual Intermodal Expo at that time. And the Technology and Maintenance Council will have its fall meeting and SuperTech competition. And moving into October, this year's ATA Management Conference and Exhibition will be in Orlando this year. So if you're planning a trip to Disney World, perhaps, and want to take the kids or grandkids to Disney World, you can maybe get combined vacation with work travel this year.
Well, as you can see, lots going on. That was Seth Clevenger, Managing Editor of Features here at Transport Topics, and our go-to guy on all things technology. Look for his work on the new ttnews.com. Seth, thanks.
You bet. Thanks.